Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of some of the functions and reports that are available in ViDA, the IRAP online software. The first thing you'll want to do if you want to use ViDA is to go to veda.irap.org as the URL. Once you go there, it's going to load up the home page, which looks like this. If this is your first time using ViDA, you'll need to click on the register button. So registering to use ViDA is free. All you need to do is provide some of your details like your name and your email and create a password. After you register to use the system, it's going to send you an email and there'll be an activation link within that email that you need to click on in order to activate your account. Sometimes that email gets sent into the spam folder, so you need to keep an eye out for it potentially going into there. So if you haven't noticed your email come through after registering, that's where it might be. After you've done that, you'll be able to log into ViDA, clicking that orange button right there. And I'm going to select this account and sign in. And what that's going to do is then load up the screen that we call the dashboard. And your dashboard should look something like this. So I'm going to start with the top right-hand side. So at the very top, you can see there's an option called language. If you click on that, you'll see the list of languages that are available for using ViDA. The next button across is, or should have your name. That's where you're able to edit your profile. The next one across are messages that the system may have sent you, so you can click on that and get your activity feed. And this button is support. This is where you can find the ViDA user guide, specifications about doing IRAP assessments, a linkage to the ViDA forum where you can share your ideas and questions with the ViDA community, a request button for training, and some of the video guides. On the right hand side of the screen there's a news section as well, so the latest news and messages that are coming through the system are posted here, so you can click on each one of those to find out more information. In the main screen is the ViDA Tools window, and within that you can see there's a button for results, requesting access to results, upgrading your account, the ViDA demonstrator, the star rating demonstrator, and you may have a user management button as well. In this demonstration I'm going to talk about each one of those for the most part, but I'll begin with this discussion about the results button. So I'm going to go right ahead and click results. What that is going to bring up is a slightly different looking interface which contains all the results that have been made available to me as a user of ViDA to look at. So on the left hand side of the screen you're going to see a filter window, and here you can see the structure of the files and what we call data sets. So I can see Eurorap, IRAP as the program level file settings, and then I can see regional settings for IRAP Bangladesh, Ghana, Papua New Guinea and so forth, and Uganda. I've previously clicked the Uganda button, and that's given me or helped me open one of the projects, which is called 2020 BIGRS Uganda. That's the Bloomberg Initiative for Global Road Safety program for Uganda. And within that, I've clicked one of the data sets. That's for the Koboko Yumbi Moyo road design. So I've clicked that. You can see that little blue icon there, that tick means that's the data set that I've selected. So when you go through and select that, you then press apply, and then it's going to apply that data to the report's main screen. So what you can see on this main screen is the star ratings, and that's corresponding to this menu item up the top here, the star ratings. I'm going to talk about each one of these other menu options in a moment. Focusing on what you can see on the screen right now is the vehicle occupant star ratings for this road design. So that's a really important point just to make right now, is that the star ratings that you're looking at on the screen are not actually for the road that is there today. It's for designs that have been produced. And as you will have seen in other parts of the webinar that we're doing, the star ratings and IRAP assessments can be produced both for existing roads and for road designs. The reason I know it's for vehicle occupants is up here there's a little picture of the car, the icon showing the car. I could also pick the icon for motorcyclists, pedestrians and bicyclists, which I'll do in a moment. Looking at the colors on the map, what we can see is a little bit of yellow down in the southern end of the road. That corresponds to 4 stars, so you can see that in the menu, or the legend, sorry, over on the right hand side. That's a 4-star section. We have some orange, which corresponds to 3 stars, some green, which is 5 stars, and as we move through, we don't see at the moment any red or black colors, which means 1 or 2 star. So just a refresher on that, the 1 and 2 star are the higher risk categories, and 4 and 5 stars are the lower risk categories. So what you can immediately take from this picture on the screen is that this design, considering the risk for vehicle occupants, is rated 3 stars or better. So it would comply with the UN Global Road Safety Performance Target of 3 stars at least with respect to vehicle occupants. One of the other functions that you can use on this mapping is you can press the satellite button and it's going to give you the satellite imagery. That can be sometimes a little helpful to help highlight things like where the towns are along the road. You can zoom in a little quite easily and get a sense of what is around the road or the design. I'm going to also, just to illustrate the function, I'm going to check what the star ratings for this design are for the pedestrians. The reason the star ratings could be different for pedestrians is because pedestrians have different needs when it comes to safety. So the most obvious ones are pedestrian crossings and sidewalks. These are things that specifically relate to risk for pedestrians. And in this case, you can see that, again, there's quite a bit of the orange and yellow, which is the 3 and 4 stars. There's a little bit of the 5-star color, which is green. But down at the southern end, there's quite a lot of black color, which is the 1-star sections of road. So what we can say from this is that although the road is mostly rated 3 stars, or the design is mostly rated 3 stars or better for vehicle occupants, there's quite a big part of the road that's still rated in the 1 or 2 stars for pedestrians. You'll also notice that some sections of this map show a grey color. That corresponds with the legend that says not applicable. The way that the IRAP model works is it only produces a star rating where a road user is expected to be present along the road. So if there's a section of road where there's not likely to be any pedestrians ever walking along the road or trying to cross the road, then a star rating won't be produced. So therefore, it's very common to see the whole design or the whole road have a star rating for vehicle occupants, but sometimes it's patchy for pedestrians because they tend to be walking around the places where there's some sort of development in the villages, towns and cities. So that's a quick example of how the star ratings can work, and like I said, you can quite easily zoom in to see a little bit more detail, and here we can zoom in to see the town and the yellow line here, the 4-star rating running through the center of the town, and as we move out of the town it's into the 3-star category, and then we've got some patches where there's no star rating being produced at all. So I'm going to zoom back out again a little. If you're looking at a road where there has been Google Street View imagery collected, you can click on the little pegman here and drag it over on top of the road. If there's Google Street View imagery available, it will show you that imagery. There isn't any available for this design and this road at the moment, so we won't do that. So that's a quick look at some of the star ratings. I'm going to come back to this map and talk a little bit more detail about it in a moment. But the next feature I want to show you is the road data. So the star ratings are produced by collecting road attribute data along the road. Every 100 meters along the road, around 50 different attributes are collected. And these are the attributes that underpin the star ratings. These attributes include things like the speed limits, sidewalks, numbers of traffic lanes, for example. There's lots of different ways that you can examine that, and the way that I want to highlight right now is the road attribute map. So this is another map form of the results, but again what it's going to show us is where are the different attributes along this design. So that's just loading up right now. Okay, and that is loading up right now. So what we can see in this case is the heading up here says road attribute maps, and it's going to give us a drop-down menu here. And what we can do is click on that, and it's going to list all the road attributes that are included in the star rating analysis. So it's quite a lot, and so you can spend quite a bit of time working through those and seeing what they are. For this experiment or this demonstration, I'm going to show you the speed limit. So I'm going to click speed limit right now. So what this is going to give us is a color-coded map showing what the different speed limits for this design are. So it's just loading up right now. And so what you can see is there's a mix between this kind of purple or violet color and then a green color here. If I click on any part of the road, it will bring up a dialog box with a little bit of detail. And what you can see here is it's telling me it's 80 kilometers an hour. And this code ID is when we do the road attribute coding, a code 11 equates to an 80 kilometer an hour speed. So you can see wherever there's this purple or violet color, that's 80 kilometers an hour in the designs. Then in the green section, you can click on that also, and it's 50 kilometers an hour. So the two speed limits that have been used in this design are 80 kilometers an hour and 50 kilometers an hour. And you can very easily, again, zoom in and see that those 50 kilometer hour zones tend to be associated with the villages and towns. There's a little patch of the 50 kilometer hour zone here, so some small patches of 50 interspersed among the 80 kilometer hour zones. Just picking another attribute that we might look at, we can take a look at the paved shoulder on the passenger side of the road, so on one side of the road. And again, we can see that the color coding is going to tell us what the paved shoulder is in this design. Again, it's just loading up. So in this case, this dark color here, if I click on that, it corresponds to the medium width of a paved shoulder, so the medium category that is used in an IRAP assessment, which is greater than or equal to 1 meter and less than 2.4 meters. So a fairly substantial paved shoulder is being provided in this design along much of the road length. This orange color is where there's a wide paved shoulder, so something greater than or equal to 2.4 meters. So little patches of quite wide paved shoulder. So these attributes can be looked at for any one of the items that underpins the star ratings, whether it's the sidewalks or pedestrian crossings or street lighting and so forth. And so it's a really, really graphic and interactive way of getting a sense of how the road has been designed and what attributes are being provided and where. One of the other functions that's available in the ViDA system and an IRAP assessment is what we call the fatality and serious injury estimation. So it is possible to use the system to estimate the numbers of deaths and serious injuries that would be associated with a road or with a design in this case. And we can also present that in map form. So what this map is going to show us is for each 100-meter segment along the road, the estimated numbers of deaths and serious injuries that might occur on that design. So over on the right-hand side, you're going to see a legend which is colored from light blue right through to dark purple. So light blue is the lowest percentile numbers of deaths, so no deaths are expected to, or serious injuries, deaths or serious injuries are expected to happen there, right through to the very highest, where there's the highest risk of deaths and serious injuries. I'm going to select the road users again, and we can produce this map for vehicles, motorcyclists, pedestrians and bicyclists all combined. So I'm going to do the combine function here. And what that's going to show us is you'll be able to see some little patches of the light blue right throughout the road. But again, down this southern end of the design, there tends to be large swathes of the darker color line, which is associated with the higher numbers of fatalities and serious injuries. So what we can again say is, other things being equal, we expect that this design will result in more deaths and serious injuries around this part of the design than it will up to the north, where it tends to be a little lighter color and drop off a little bit. So what that would tell us when we put all this information together is that Some of the star ratings we saw for pedestrians are in the 1-star category, and that tends to be associated with the more likely deaths and serious injuries happening down there as well. And we're going to explore in a little moment some of the things that we might be able to do to improve the design at that location. But again, this functionality, the ability to produce fatality and serious injury estimates, is incredibly powerful. What it means is we can produce designs for roads and talk about what the star ratings are likely to be, but also forecast how many deaths and serious injuries are likely to happen on that road. So it's incredibly powerful messaging and really brings home to the designers, the road authorities, the development banks, everyone involved in the development of the project, some of the true costs of the design if we don't get it right, and also helps us to understand some of the true benefits of investing a little more to make the road safe. It gives us a really strong sense of the true cost of not doing good designs, because we can see the numbers of deaths and serious injuries likely to happen. So that brings me to the next option, which is the investment plans. So I'm going to bring up the SRIP, which is the Safer Roads Investment Plan table. So that's going to come up in a moment. And what this shows is an economic analysis of the safety countermeasures that could be used to improve the safety of the design. So these are things that could be done to the design to lift its star rating and reduce the numbers of deaths and serious injuries. And it does it in the context of an economic analysis. So at the top of this screen, what you're going to see is this small one-line table, which begins with total FSI saved. So this is the total number of fatalities and serious injuries that could be saved if these safety countermeasures, which are listed in the table below, were implemented. So what this is saying is there would be 836 fatalities and serious injuries saved over a period of 20 years, which is listed at the top here, if all of these safety countermeasures were added to the design. These next columns talk about the present value of the safety benefits and the estimated cost, and these are plotted in Ugandan shillings. So an estimated cost is the estimated cost of doing all these safety countermeasures. So it's about 13.5 billion Ugandan shillings, which is about 3 to 4 million US dollars, I think. And if we go into the table below, all the safety countermeasures that have triggered in the system are listed one by one. In each of them, it provides an estimate of the number of sites or the length of that treatment. So in the case of pedestrian fencing, 1 kilometre of pedestrian fencing has been suggested. But if we look at individual location type countermeasures like improvements to intersections, protected turn lanes have been suggested at 26 of the intersections along this road. Again, we have the FSI saved, so that's the number of fatalities and serious injuries that could be saved by that particular countermeasure. And again, those economics, the safety benefit, estimated cost are listed as well. The last column talks about the benefit cost ratio. So a benefit cost ratio of 4 implies that the economic benefit in terms of fatalities and serious injuries saved is in this case 4 times higher than the cost of doing the safety treatment. We also have this column called cost per FSI saved. So this is the number of Ugandan shillings that would be needed to be spent to save 1 fatality and serious injury using that countermeasure. Really valuable part of this table is that you can click on any one of these countermeasures and it's going to bring up another map and illustrating exactly where those countermeasures have been triggered along the road. So if we move to the satellite, each one of these blue dots is a location where traffic calming has been suggested for inclusion into the design. So if we can zoom in a little bit, you can see through the town here in Yumbe. This is likely one of these locations where the speed limit was reduced to 50, but what the analysis is saying is that that could be complemented with traffic calming at some strategic locations right throughout that town. If you want more information about what each of those countermeasures really means, you can click on this More Information tab at the top, and it's going to give you an excerpt from what we call the Road Safety Toolkit. So give you some general information about what traffic calming is or what any one of those countermeasures is. You can then click on this link down below, and it's going to open up a link in the Road Safety Toolkit. That's toolkit.irap.org, and it's going to give you much more information about that particular treatment, including benefits, some implementation issues, so things to consider when you're designing a facility like that, some images, some treatments about costs, treatment life and effectiveness, and some links to other information. Right now, in fact, we're in the process of upgrading the Road Safety Toolkit, so within a few months you can expect to see a fresh new looking version of this toolkit with new photos, new case studies and updated links and information. So if I go back into ViDA, I can close that down. I want to now go back to the star rating map. So I'm going to click on our map right here, and it's going to take us back to that star rating map that we were looking at a little earlier. What I want to do now is zoom in a little bit more on that section of road that we said is still 1 star for pedestrians. And we're going to think a little about what we might do to improve the star ratings at that particular location. The investment plan that we just looked at will have included safety countermeasures that influence risk for pedestrians, including the traffic calming that we looked at, but you may have also seen there was pedestrian sidewalks proposed as well. So this section of 1 star is something that we're interested in. What I'm going to do is change this menu from smoothed to raw. So to explain what that means, the IRAP assessments are done every 100 meters along the road. So every 100 meters along the road, we collect the road attributes that underpin the star ratings. What that means is actually there's a star rating produced for every 100 meters along the road. In order to produce these maps that you can see here, and I guess control for some of the large peaks and spikes that happen in risk along the road, we use a smoothing function. So generally when you look at a star rating map, you're going to see the smoothed version. And what it is basically taking an average of the star ratings across a series of 100 meters all together. So it might be a 3 kilometer length that gets averaged to give us what we call the smooth star rating. But in the system, you can take a look at the raw star ratings that underpin the smooth star ratings. So these are the star ratings that are there for every 100 meter segment along the road. That's really important because once we have that, we can then start to look in much more detail about what it is that's driving the star rating at that location. So if we zoom in now on this 1 star section, you can see it's all black along here. What that's basically saying is each 100 meter section consecutively is 1 star. Up here you can see it varies between yellow and green, yellow, green. That's jumping between 4 and 5 stars in this lower speed limit section. If I click on one of these sections right here now, so left click on one of the sections, it's going to give me a little bit of information about that location, and it's going to open up a link called Open in Demonstrator. So you might remember on the dashboard of ViDA, a bunch of the buttons in the IRAP tools, one of the things was called Demonstrator. So what I'm effectively doing is going to open up this section of data, this 100 meter section of data in the demonstrator. So that's going to open up in a separate window, and it's going to bring it up in an interface that looks like this. So what we're looking at now is the star ratings for that exact 100 meter section of road that we were looking at. And you can see, as before, we saw that this road is like it's got this lots of 3 star for vehicle occupants. It's also lots of 3 stars for motorcyclists. This is the 1 star section for pedestrians. And interestingly, there's no star rating at this location for bicyclists. So it's expected that there isn't actually anyone riding a bicycle on this section of the design. What I can do is also click down here on each one of these tabs: roadside, mid-block, intersections, flow, VRU, facilities and land use. So VRU means vulnerable road users, and speeds. What this tells us is what is the actual attributes recorded at that 100 meter section of road. So all the attributes that we recorded are going to be listed here. So I can see on the roadside what's on the roads, the signs and poles. I can see the median paved shoulder width. If I click on mid-block, I can see that the median is a center line, so just a line separating opposing flows. I can see there's a number of lanes is 1 in each direction, wide lanes, there's no curve at this particular location, and so forth. So all the attributes that are underpinning the star ratings are recorded here. In this case, it's no intersection. The flows along the road are recorded. So is there how many vehicles are flowing along the road each day? What's the proportion of motorcyclists? How many people are walking along the road or across the road? And are there sidewalks and pedestrian crossings and so forth? The last one that the last tab that's shown is relating to speed. So there's two really important points on this one. One is the speed limit and the second one is the operating speed. So speed limit is 80 kilometers an hour in the design, and operating speed, so the estimated 85th percentile speed, is also in this case set to 80. So what that in rough terms is saying is that most of the traffic is traveling at no faster than the speed limit. Now, the way the star ratings works is actually it takes the larger of those two. So you can imagine if you had a road that had a speed limit of 40, but you knew that most people were traveling at 50, that in that case you would say the star rating is based on 50, which is the highest traffic flow speed. Vice versa, if you had a road that had a speed limit of 50, but actually everyone drove at 30 kilometers an hour, then the star rating would be at 50. So the star rating is always based on the larger of whatever is the speed limit or the operating speed. So what we can do right now is if we're one of the designers working on this design, we can start to say, okay, apart from the Safer Roads investment plan that we have, I can also do some experiments to see how I might lift the star ratings of the pedestrians. So we can see it's 1 star here at the moment. So let's start by having a look at the pedestrian facilities. We can see at this location in the design there's no sidewalk on the driver's side or passenger side. So let's say, okay, let's add in a pedestrian sidewalk. So we're going to say it's a sidewalk right beside the road. So it's not physically separated by any distance from the road. It's just a well-formed, formal sidewalk at the side of the road. If I add that in on both sides, you can see a dramatic change has happened to the stars. So instead of being 1 star, it's jumped right up to 4 stars. So what the model is essentially saying is at 80 kilometers an hour, people walking on the road, so the assumption is if there's no sidewalk, they will walk on the road. At 80 kilometers an hour, that's an incredibly risky situation. If, though, you provide sidewalks that are accessible, that people can walk along, they don't have to walk in the same spaces that traffic traveling along, and so their risk is dramatically reduced. So just by adding sidewalks, it's a huge, huge benefit in terms of safety for pedestrians. So if I take those away again, so if I'm going to set that to none again, if I were to say, okay, we can't build sidewalks for whatever reason, what else might we do? One of the options, and virtually the only option left, really, is to start managing traffic speeds. So what if we said, okay, we don't have any sidewalks, so we can't put sidewalks, we're going to have to lower the speeds. So if we put the speed limit, let's say, down to 50 kilometers an hour, there's no change in the star ratings. That's because at the moment, the operating speed is still 80. So actually, at the moment, we're assuming even though the speed limit went down, the operating speed is still 80. If we adjust that to 50 as well, to say everyone roughly travels at the same speed as the speed limit, you can see that it's jumped from 1 star to 2 star. So I might just put that back again, so where you can see the impact. So we've gone from 1 star and it went up to the 2 star category. One of the other things to note is this little number underneath, which is the star rating score. So in this case it says 44.86. So this is the score that's calculated in the IRAP methodology that underpins the star rating. So if we take a situation where, let's say, we halve this number, what that means is we're halving the risk of death and serious injury. So if this number were to go to 22, we would say that would be a 50% reduction in the risk of death and serious injury for pedestrians. So if we were to take that operating speed back down to 50, so let's say we set the speed limit to 50, we did some police enforcement to get that speed down, it actually jumps down to 10. So even though we're still in this 2-star category, which is relatively high risk, the score has gone from 44 down to 30, so like a 75% reduction in risk. So enormous reduction in risk of death and serious injuries, but still not really what we would call adequate. So in that case, you would say, okay, you're going to have to do something a little extra. You're going to have to either provide at least some sidewalk for the pedestrians or slow the traffic down a little more. So this is an example of how the star rating demonstrator gives you this interactive interface to really test how changes to the road's design can influence risk to each of the 4 road users. So I'll take you back to the main screen in a moment, but your assignment that you'll have for this webinar is very much related to using this star rating demonstrator to produce some star ratings for a particular section of road. So I'll jump back into ViDA, and we're back again looking at this star rating map. The other menu that I haven't talked about at the top is the download files. I'm not going to go into great detail or any detail right now, but you can download all of the data that we've been looking for in Excel format, and within that menu there, that's what you can find. You can find all the coding for every 100-meter section of the design or road, the star ratings, the fatality estimations, and the investment plans. So what I'm going to do is jump back into the dashboard and quickly show you a couple of the other functions. So earlier in the presentation, I talked about the accounts that are used in ViDA. I talked about the reader account, the analyst account, provisional creator account, and the creator account. So this is where you get to request upgrades to your account. So you can come in here and request access to the analyst level account, and in fact my account that I'm using is already set to analyst, so that button is faded out. But I could also request access to creator. So being a creator means I have the chance to create data in the ViDA system. I can create star ratings. If you apply for that, you're going to be given access to what we call the sandbox. So it's a place where you can create star ratings, but you're not going to be able to publish any of that from the sandbox. In order to publish results officially, you'll need a full creator account. So that's where you can apply to upgrade your account. So if I go back to our dashboard, the other function I wanted to let you know about is the request access to results. And again, earlier in the presentation and when I was using the PowerPoint slides, I talked about the different ways that data sets can be set and shared with others. That data set that I was looking at earlier, you can find a place where you can request access to it. So if I click on the IRAP right here, I'm going to scroll down and I can see a list of all the places where data has been set to final, and it's been set to either limited access or public access. So any data that is not final or any data that is final but is set to private will not show in this list at all, but otherwise data will. And so I'm going to click on IRAP Uganda, and I'm going to click on the 2020 BIGRS Uganda. Somehow it's showing two editions, but these are the final. The same, some sort of mirror is happening, but let me see if I can strangely enough that's showing twice. I think they're the same. You can see that's the data set that we were looking at earlier, so Koboko Yumbe Moyo design. You can see it's set to limited access. So what that means is it's set to final, but you can't access it unless you ask for it. In this case, Rachel Nanwa is the person who did the star ratings of that design. She's the manager of the database. These little boxes over here is going to tell you if, well, the left one says reader, the middle one relates to analyst, and the third one relates to creator. So a green tick means that I have reader access to this data set, I have analyst access to this data set, but I do not have a creator access to this data set. If I wanted to apply for access to this dataset, I could click on one of those buttons and it would bring up a dialog box where I can send Rachel a message saying, can I please access that data? So that's a way that you can request access. At the moment, because that particular design is still underway, and like I said, the Uganda National Road Agency and World Bank Global Road Safety Facility have been very generous to let us use that data in our example. But it is live data, it is a live design, and so Rachel may say at the moment you can't access that, perhaps in the future you can. But this is the interface where you can request access to data that's, like I said, been set to final. So with that, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I think I've covered most things. I'm not going to talk about the user management. That relates specifically to access to data sets that you manage. When you first get started, you might not have any, but afterwards, that's the interface that you can use where you want to, if you want to share access to specific data sets to others. So you, like I said before, you can choose what access people have to your data sets. There's also many other different versions or iterations of the results that are available. So the star ratings we looked at were just for maps, but you can present those in table form, in chart form, and also in what we call the risk worm form. You're very welcome to experiment with those and take a look yourself. So with that, I'll draw this presentation to a close. Thank you very much.